Rogen. That's what being one of the four horsemen means.
What's up, you pencil neck geeks? Welcome to the world famous Comedy Store. This is the Store Horseman podcast. This is your boy, the Dark Architect, speaking. To my left, the Golden Pony, Tony Hinchcliffe.
What's
is
up,
back
everybody?
again.
We're here again, another beautiful day. We have a special treat here with us, so let's get into it.
Absolutely. Gonna skip by just for a second there. Welcome, Matt Edgar. What's happening? Man?
I'm right here.
You excited?
Yeah, I'm stoked.
You don't even know. You don't have words.
No,
You're so
I'm
excited.
speechless right now.
Wonderful.
But I'm here.
Wonderful.
Present.
Absolutely. Someone who I wish was speechless at times. The evil genius Eddie Firth. What's up?
Yeah, speechless works great on a podcast. But
Yeah.
I'm happy that we're here on a Friday night doing an extra episode.
Yeah, it's like
It's
an
gonna be
episode
fun.
of Impact Wrestling.
Yeah.
And, of course, the enforcer Johnny Scortis in the building. What's up?
Yeah, baby, I'm excited.
Yeah?
This is good, but
Here we go.
I kind of feel like somebody was forgotten
What do you mean?
in the introductions.
What? Who do we forget?
You talk about
Johnny?
me.
You talking about Josh?
me.
Josh.
The
Josh?
jabroni, Josh
Yeah.
Martin, of course, always.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
apologize. Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're saying. What about Raven?
Whoa.
The man, the myth, the legend. Raven is in the building at the world famous Comedy Store. Welcome, man.
I think I saw that Joe hailing a cab down 6th Avenue.
We keep it hacky in here.
That's the best.
Yep.
Always the fun stuff. Well, welcome. We really appreciate you coming down, man.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
First time in the world famous Comedy Store.
Shocking to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not that shocking.
Have you wrestled a lot in Hollywood?
Men.
Yeah.
Oh, that's West Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's where we are. This is West Hollywood.
Oh, no. Not really in Hollywood. No. Yeah, at the LA, wherever.
The arena is.
Staples Center.
Staples Center.
Forum.
The Forum. I think the Pizza Hut over on 13th.
Were you still in ECW when they did the heat wave here in LA for that one special time?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I wasn't there for that. Yeah, it was weird, ECW. Like, they kind of, I feel like I got there just as they were starting to hit, like, it was like a surfer hitting a wave. Like, just as the
Right.
wave came, I happened to swim up and catch on it.
Sure.
And then just as the wave was ending, just out of the pipeline, I got out and left right, and like it got bigger. The company got bigger, but it was never as influential again after the first pay-per-view.
Right. Well, so many people started jocking the style, I feel like, a little bit after that.
Yeah, I like that term, jocking the style.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you're seeing, like, stop signs being used
Yeah.
in WWE and all
Yeah.
this shit that you did a long time ago.
Yeah, my favorite thing, just when I think of a stop sign, I think of Dreamer having the guy plant the sign in the audience.
Yeah.
Where the guy says, "Use my sign," and then he peels it off, and it's hits me with it, and the people go, "Why do you sell for a piece of paper?"
Right.
And then he peels it, and it's a stop sign, which makes me think of my favorite thing is one time he had we're doing a double down, and we're both selling, and his legs hanging outside on the apron, so he has Beulah tape a frying pan to his ankle, and then he kicks me he has it taped it to his right ankle, gives me, and so we both start to get up. He gives me this lame ass kick with his left so I can catch it, so then he can hit me with the enziguri with the right with the frying pan
Nice.
taped to his ankle. It's the greatest spot ever, but his left leg kick was you barely get his fat leg off the ground. It was crazy.
Yeah, leaving the ground and Tommy Dreamer aren't two things that...
No, but I love that. I love the creativity, the freedom, like that he had a frying pan taped to his ankle so he could enziguri me with it.
Amazing. Amazing.
Turns out he used that frying pan a lot of other times.
Right.
In the kitchen area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One time he hit me with a frozen turkey and knocked me out for half a second.
Wow.
Dang.
And and the big rib was nobody popped for it because it went bonk. like
It made the wrong noise.
Like, because if you like, so he's on the floor, he's out on the floor, and I'm in the ring, and I see some fan handing him a turkey. So I being the selling machine I am, I stick my head out through the second and third to feed for him. He throws it and it just goes bonk. But I blacked out for like half a second, and I come to and I'm hearing boo.
There's no sweet spot on a turkey, I guess.
No, that's why those frying pans are so great. The cookie sheets are the best. They make the best noise, and they hurt the least.
Unbelievable.
Cookie sheet.
Are you a big fan of stand-up comedy? You generally make it out to any of the clubs at all?
Yeah.
Like in Atlanta, you ever go?
When I used to do open mics, I'd go. But I don't really go. I don't know. I don't go out anymore at all. Like, I mean, I went out 7 nights a week from the time I was 15 till I was like 40, 45.
Damn.
And now I'm home 7 nights a week. But I'm a huge stand-up fan. I've done let's see, I don't know how many stand-up gigs I've done. I usually average about 5 or 6 a year.
Yeah.
Like, an hour, doing that 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I think I read you went, like, you toured a little bit with Bob Levy or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, my first stand-up gig ever was I never did an open mic. I did a 45-minute headliner.
That's how that goes a lot of times.
And then my second, third, and fourth gigs were with Bob Levy and like co-headlining with him, I guess, because my last name's Levy, so the Levy World Order.
Love
it. And then I started thinking I better do some open mic nights, and if I want to get invited back, And then I stopped doing it for a while, for a couple of years, and then started dabbling again. Just picking up some paid gigs. But I mean, mostly it was just unpaid gigs,
Yeah.
And I prefer doing like 30 minutes because I got 30 stronger minutes, but 45 I'm starting to, it's getting, the material isn't as strong, and an hour is pushing it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's not, I don't know, but they're all jokes. There's like almost no wrestling involved in it whatsoever, because like I figured I could tell wrestling stories like all the other guys doing stand up and doing quotation marks stand up in wrestling.
right.
But they're just telling war stories. It's really a one man show. So I made sure that it was, and I wouldn't let anybody help me write any jokes. Like Bob wanted to help me write some stuff, but when I started, I wanted to be able to write 45 minutes of my own stuff,
For sure.
So, and then I got like 2 hours worth of material that needs to be worked on. It's just pieces of material.
Yeah.
Do you ever go out with guys like, because a lot of the sort of legends are doing a lot of stand-up now. It's like RVD's doing stand-up,
Mick
Foley, Jake is has a one-man show. A lot of people.
On that point, do you have can you find any similarities between wrestling and stand-up? Like, we talk about this stuff.
Yeah,
all
the
time.
roads, it's the same thing. The traveling, the being on the road, locker room, the green room is the locker room. You just sitting around and wait till it's time for you to go on. And then if you're riding with somebody who's later on in the show, then you got to wait till they're done. I mean, it's really the same kind of thing, except you guys don't have to tie your boots on, which is a pain in the ass. Like, wrestling boots are just a pain in the, there's like 37 holes in them,
Do you still have your first boots?
Yeah. I also have my first boots.
Do you have your first pair of jorts that you wore in?
First flannel.
Yeah.
I know. I have the first flannel and the first couple flannels and the leather jacket and but the concert shirts, like I like. This is before eBay happened, so
sure.
So like I had like a stack, like 100 of them, a bag, and then my roommate's like, "Get rid of those. Stop being a hoarder."
Oh, no.
And so I was like, I'll just get rid of them. So I gave them to Goodwill, and then eBay starts up 2 years later, and I'm like,
God damn
my
it.
God, yeah.
Same
To this
story with my
day-
Ninja Turtles.
To this day, the only wrestler that can pull off jorts.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think John Cena pulls off the jorts?
No.
It's part
not
of him
like,
now.
Not like Raven.
Of course not like Raven.
What was the worst concert you've ever been to?
worst concert.
Question.
Great question.
Queensryche was terrible. Like when I
What?
saw him, yeah, I was
Silent
disappointed.
City?
I was upset. I saw the Cult. I love the Cult, and they were terrible. But I saw them for free, which pissed me off even more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like for some reason, if you paid for it, then you can bitch about it. But if you got a song for free, you can't really have any right to bitch.
Most disappointed I ever was at a concert was also free. It was down the street, Sunset Music Festival, like 10 years ago. Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
They don't like their fans at all.
They do not like performing. They must love selling albums because they got no joy out of anything they were doing that night.
No, I felt as sad as Billy Corgan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Felt like a rat in a cage.
I I was so upset I actually started Smashing Pumpkins.
Billy was mad he was missing wrestling, guys. He's
Yeah.
gotta be at home watching the product.
You ever seen the Smashing Pumpkins live?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a while ago.
Maybe when they were
maybe
younger and
used
they
stick
had
hair.
more
No,
zest.
I saw him a couple of years ago. Because whenever Billy's in town, I'll go see him.
Yeah.
And they were good though. They were really good. But now that I don't drink anymore, it's just concerts aren't fun really.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, it's not the
Like,
same
I-
effect with
I
a
used
water
to-
bottle shot.
I used to see every concert. The Colt really pissed me off because, like, when I got in for free for that was back before I was famous, and I'd get in for free. You know, when you're famous, you get in for free for pretty much everything. But this was before that, so this was like a big deal that we got in for free, and so it was even more annoying.
Nobody knows me. I'm here for free. The show
Yeah.
sucks. I can't complain.
Yeah. I think they had just got back. Either they were just leaving or just got back from like a South America tour. Probably just got back and they were just wiped out or something. But I mean, then I've thought I've put on some shit ass performances for the fans. You know, when I'm exhausted. So I can't complain.
What's a memorable bad performance of yours that you
remember?
you'll think about every now and then?
I really don't. I really don't think of the past that much. I try not to live in the past. You know, like.
Well, it's fun back there.
Yeah, I mean, but I, I'm just happy I lived through it.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, you had some close calls.
Yeah.
You are incredibly present right now. I mean, for all the damage that we've seen you take, I mean, you don't seem like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, my midterm memory is pretty shit. Like, in my short, like today, what I had for lunch, I can remember, but 3 weeks ago, is shadier and and it's bad. It's really bad because like my memory, I used to have a great memory. Like I remember everything, and not like Mary Lou Henner or anything who remembers everything, but like my and my long-term memory is great. Like I can still remember all the cast of the Brady Bunch.
And Mary Lou Henner.
All that nerdy shit you remember as a kid. Like I still remember all that, and I still remember all the highlights. But like people will come up to me and they go, "Oh, remember when we did this and this?" And I'm like, "No," and they're like, "We hung out for like a whole weekend." And I'm like,
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah. So I mean, but what are you gonna do? I mean, it was between the chair shots to the head and the drugs.
Yeah, certainly. I think I heard you say once on a different interview that you actually kind of preferred more of the hardcore stuff. Like it was a little like easier on your body than some of the regular matches.
I like the hardcore because when I got as I got older, it was easier because you don't have to take as many bumps, flat back bumps.
Yeah.
You can also you can be more creative. Because you have props, which is funny because in the stand-up world, props are just hack city. Which I don't see why it is, but I mean that's just the way.
In wrestling, it's awesome though.
Yeah,
I mean, you see those TLC matches and things like that. What it's evolved into.
Well, you were creative. You put him on the shopping cart. Like, nobody was doing that. Nobody was pushing a shopping cart of toys.
Well, I also thought like. They would try and have all the shit under the ring, and I'm like, if all the props are under the ring, then it's like you gotta go. It's kind of stupid. Why don't I just bring them with me? If I'm, And then Vince would always want you to have him like make it. He wanted it organic looking, So so I was like, well,
get some real groceries in there.
But he'd want to you can't just put that there. You have to have a reason for it. Like you can't just have a cookie pan sitting under the ring.
It's like, what? I got a stop sign.
Right. So I'm like, I'll just bring this shit out with me.
But meanwhile, there's kendo sticks under there
Nowadays, there's 13 ladders, 50 tables. I think one of the things that's interesting about like a hardcore match like that it's a classic Chekhov's gun. You know that if the table comes out, it's getting used. If the chair comes out, there's an absolute payoff. Once you bring that thing into
there's
play.
a fire extinguisher, there's not going to be a fire.
Unless there's not a payoff, then that's sort of a tease. If you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what he does with the,
Did you ever bring anything knowing that you weren't going to use it? Or did you
Probably.
use
I've
everything?
tried. I've done everything. Like I brought the kitchen sink out one time just so Joey Styles can say, just so Joey Styles could say, "Oh, now I've seen everything."
It's hilarious.
And like one of my favorite, most proud moments is when the ECW when I first got there, they the business had gotten to the point where it was all screw job finishes. Like nobody got pinned clean, and nobody was doing jobs because all name guys wouldn't do jobs, and so Paulie said he was going to have all clean finishes, which is what helped separate ECW from everybody else at the very beginning, and I remember, so I set up a false finish where I hit him with some kind of screw job finish. And then I was crawling over to make the count, which I knew he was kicking. Like I set it up so he'd kick out of it, so I'd get the audience. And they start chanting, "No more screw job finishes!" And the whole building's screaming at. And I'm just chuckling inside because I know that he's kicking out. They're gonna be so pissed, like that they're wrong. Like they're gonna be more pissed that they're wrong, than happy that they didn't get a screw job finish.
What a pop.
And so then he kicked out, and the place just. And he cried like bitches with skin knees.
We talk about that all the time. Like we're even guilty of it a lot. We as fans a lot of times don't give it enough time to develop. Like as soon as we see something we don't like, we're just like, oh, this is shit. This is not any no thought to where it might go, how it's gonna finish.
Right. Well, that's like when I first debuted on an ECW, Meltzer wrote. He wrote, "It looks like a baby Undertaker." Gave me, which my character is so far from, but instead of giving it any time to develop, he just wrote it off off the get go.
The Undertaker would never wear shorts.
Yeah, right.
and from the moment I saw you performing as Raven, I was like, this is a guy who gets himself and is going to do that from now on, and it was freaking amazing.
Yeah,
because I watched you as Johnny Pummel and all that other stuff, but then when I saw you as Raven, I was like, oh, that's someone that I can relate to, and it was amazing.
That was the whole idea. Was I wanted to appeal to the misanthropes, the misfits, the tortured. Raven was a tortured poetic genius in his own mind,
Right.
But it's, in some ways it worked against me because purists, you should be wearing tights and trunks, and but if I had a nickel for every indie guy now that's wearing a T-shirt, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Because that's what I remember. Like I didn't see the ECW stuff till years later, just because I didn't have access to it. But when I remember you sitting in the crowd in WCW, and it's just like. It just felt different. Like it's something else is happening here, and he's wearing a goddamn Sandman shirt, which I love. You know what I mean? Like it just instantly drawn to the work you were getting ready to do.
Well, it's like Jerry Jarrett said. He goes. I don't know why you sit in the corner, but it's intriguing. Yeah, and that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted people to think, I wanted to be a three-dimensional character. I wanted somebody who you knew what he would do in every situation. Every situation, he's going to turn on Dreamer. I mean, like a lot of guys don't like Shane Douglas would. If you work with him, he'd be like, the franchise wouldn't do that. Talking in the third person. A lot of guys don't like that. I love working with a guy that knows his character because he knows what he'll do and what he won't do. So I don't have to worry about trying to, would your character do this? You know what I mean? Yeah. Of course, you run into problems where guys think their character wouldn't do something when they would, but, for the most part, I'd rather work with somebody who knows. And I tried to be the first fully fleshed out character that you could say that you could go, if you had to write what he did for his day, you could probably figure out that he woke up, did drugs. Right. Yelled at his rich parents,
That's
well, so I was gonna bring that up because I don't think I've ever really heard you talk about that when they evolved your character in that way in WCW when we come to find that like Raven is from a
I didn't want to do
background.
That.
Yeah, I think that's cool though.
You didn't want to do it? Is that what you said?
No, I didn't want to do it because I thought it was too comical, But it, and Bischoff, his problem with my character was he thought that my promos were too over everybody's head. But I'm like, song lyrics are over everybody's head, but you get the gist. The words should be mesmerizing, but they all make perfect sense if you listen to them carefully. But if you don't, you get the gist.
They were ready for it. Look, Bray Wyatt built his career off that 8 years ago, right? 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Doing almost the same type of.
Yeah, I see people now that like were definitely touched by Raven.
For
big
sure.
time.
For sure.
Big time.
Yeah, but the police haven't found me for those yet.
We, when I was in, I think I've talked about this on this podcast before, but I have to bring it up to you in person because it's so interesting to me. But we were all in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, me and my whole crew in grade school growing up.
And you got in lots of fights when you were in that age, right?
Yeah.
That's what because listen, on the Kill Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't, like looking at you, I never would have guessed you were a scrapper.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, luckily it was all a long time ago. I've been pretty lucky as of late. Avoiding things. But back in the day, we would wrestle every day in wrestling class. So we had this one music teacher, like they had to like fill their quota, and there was like no black teachers at the school. So they found this one black guy that knew how to play the piano that like had he had a worse learning disability than any of the students. Like he had no control of his classroom at all. Like we would literally wrestle from the time that the door closed behind us till leaving music class for an entire year, each year. Every day from Monday through Friday, one class per day was just wrestling class for 45 minutes. And everybody was their own favorite wrestler, you know what I mean? Like I was X-Pac, you know, my friend, the popular guy, whatever, was The Rock, you know what I mean? Like this and that.
For sure.
And my one buddy, who is a genius, an amazing electric guitarist, named Michael Andrasic, was you, and he loved you. And I've talked about this before because it's so funny, but every single day in that music class, when we'd close the door and like close the blinds so that no other teacher could see what we were doing, he would immediately go and sit in the corner of the room until 38 minutes into this class. And the last 2 minutes of every class was just him coming in and DDT.
That's
every
awesome.
Single time. And I think that's up there in all my funny wrestling memories, one I could never shake. I even texted him once I got here this evening. I go, about to interview Raven on my wrestling podcast, LOL. And he goes, I hope he's wearing a flannel. But we were doing that fucking 20 years ago. I mean, more than that. Jeez, 25 years ago.
Time flies.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
and
it
even
does.
Playing the video game, like I would, like when we were doing Royal Rumbles, I would do that exact thing. I would choose your character, and then just sit in the corner and wait. That was the best part of that game because
You could do it as the,
Did you have to do anything for that?
For what?
For that
Video game.
Nintendo game?
Revenge.
I don't think so. But a lot of people, like all the boys in the locker room, are like, "How'd you get on the box?" It's so they're like,
You're there,
it's
Nash, and like
Nash, Hogan, Goldberg, and me, and
Raven.
they're like, it's like, how'd you get on there? I'm like, I don't know. And then it turned out that I met the guy who invented the game, and he said I was his favorite wrestler, so he put me in the box.
Boom.
Man.
Yeah.
Damn.
They nailed you in that thing.
That's how it goes.
They wanted to market it towards the type of guy that actually buys video games. You don't see any massive giant ripped dudes breaking their controller. But no, that is so it's so epic because even the sitting in the corner, that's another thing that
Different.
is a Bray Wyatt type of, and the reason why I keep going to this reference is because he's the undeniable, in my opinion, number one, like most entertaining to our generation type of wrestler right now, and what also seems to be one of the most respected amongst the wrestlers. And
Yeah.
it seems like I'd be interested to know more from him about that. That's something we have to remember to ask him when.
I've never met
About
him.
Raven.
I never met him, but supposedly, from what people have talked to him, that know him, that that I'm friends with, that it's based more on Danny Spivey's
Weyland Mercy.
Weyland Mercy character. But who knows? I mean, I don't watch it, so I don't know. I'm like, finally one day I was like, I better at least see what he looks like in case I ever run into him, by accident.
Right.
So I didn't even know what he looked like until all old timers say I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I really don't. And it's not that I'm a snob or anything. It's just that it's I stopped watching back in 2000 when
You were still in it.
when I was still in it. Yeah.
Takes it off his DVR.
Yeah, I'm over this shit. Oh, that's my music. Where's my grocery cart?
Yeah, well, I stopped watching it because it got so bad, and it broke my heart when they did nothing. Like when they built the ECW, WCW angle, and then they did nothing with any of us.
Oh man,
And
I
it was just
hated that. What a waste of just gold.
Yep.
And so I just stopped watching at that point. And then a couple years went by, and a few more, and then I was like, wow. And then I'd watch, I'd be paid to be a guest at a pay-per-view party or something, and I'm like, and I'd watch it. And that's how I saw Punk. Finally become as good as he. Punk, I knew him before he was as good as he became.
Right.
But he always thought he was that good.
Sure.
But eventually
Seems that
he
way.
actually became that good.
Right.
He actually became the best in the business. And so I was like, yeah. But then I was still some of the matches were like shit, and I was like, I don't really. And being a completist, I'd want to watch everything, because. You gotta when it's done right, it's episodic TV,
Yeah.
and you have to see every episode. And I'm like, I'm not ready to commit to 5, 6, 7 hours a week,
Totally.
or just 5 when it was just, Raw and SmackDown. I was like, I'm not ready to commit to that. And so, and also a part of there's always that little part of me that it breaks my heart because I never got to be where I thought my talent was good enough to be.
Right.
I burned my own bridges, so I can't blame anyone but myself. But but I always felt like I could have been the top guy at the top company.
Mm-hmm.
And when my WWF run was a shits, and my WCW run, I never got past. And I got right below the Big Ten.
Right.
And then and they wouldn't let me rise, and then so I went back to ECW, and then then the business fell apart. For the longest time. So so there's numerous reasons, but now mainly I just don't watch it because I'd rather watch there's too much good TV now. It has been for 10 years.
Sure.
You're absolutely right. And but to piggyback off what you're saying, if you watch the product now, your fingerprints are all over everything.
Certainly.
And it wouldn't be what it is right now if you didn't do the stuff
I know about that.
you put your fucking
Dude.
dick and balls on the table and did that shit.
And then you went
You
through that
kidding?
table.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about your dick and balls from backstage, weirdly enough.
was
It's
like the first-
legendary.
The first one
And I
through
had
the
to say
door. First one through the door takes the bullets. Do you ever have thoughts on why you didn't get to those places you knew you could be? Because that talent, the character, wrestling's built on character. That character and
Because
the moments.
I had to prove I was the smartest guy in the room, and I thought I was the smartest guy in the room, but I had to make sure everybody else knew it, which is not a recipe for good politics.
You showed them your Mensa
can
card,
relate.
like,
I can
hey,
relate.
everybody, look at this.
Yeah,
Bust it out.
Bust it
yes,
out.
Yes.
I want to see Raven's Mensa card.
I love it.
Ooh.
Oh! You see that, Vince? You see that?
See you tomorrow, everybody.
Wow. That is so cool.
All right, where did you get that? Get that in Mexico.
It's actually a funny story. So I at some point I just started saying I was in Mensa, and eventually Mensa called me up one day and they go, we hear you're a member, but we don't have any record of it.
Amazing.
And I'm like, well, I just somebody said something that they thought I was a member on TV, and then I just ran with it. They go, do you want to be a member? I'm like, well, I go, do I have to take an IQ test? And they go, just show us your records of previous IQ tests, because there's no way my IQ has dropped dramatically since then. So I pulled out, I dug up an old record and mailed it in, and they said, yeah, that qualifies. And so
You outsmarted the genius.
Wow.
It's
They're
amazing.
like, excuse me, the record you sent us was an actual vinyl record. But you're still a member. Here's
We
the
also
card.
love Metallica. Thank you.
And I really have a love-hate relationship with it, because I started getting, so they started sending me the newsletter, but it's so it's so
can't
so
even
pretentious.
understand
That too. But it's so pretentious. It's so pretentious. It's like, we only hang out, do Mensa activities because we're the only ones that understand us.
Have you been listed in the notable alumni section? Have you been in the newsletter as one of our members just won the ECW World Heavyweight title?
I don't know.
You have to be the only Mensa member to have won a major world title.
Well, actually, I'm not currently a member because I haven't paid my dues for the last year. I got tired of paying. I'm like, every year it's $100, $150, whatever it is, and I'm like, why am I paying? I don't.
You don't get anything, do you?
No, you get the newsletter. I'm like, I don't want the newsletter.
Hold on a minute. I gotta tell you, they're getting you to pay $150 every month, and it does nothing for you. That's kind of dumb.
I was gonna say you're the smartest Mensa member. You're like, I have the card now. It's got my name on it.
Yeah, I've never done any of the activities, or it just didn't fit my my lifestyle. So.
I saw that I'm also paying for my ex-girlfriend's PlayStation account, and I quit that shit, and I'm a fucking idiot. I can't believe you were paying money to be in Mensa.
Yeah, so actually, I think it's I forget what it is a year, but. So every so often they'll send me an email saying, "Oh, come back and join. Only X amount of dollars for the rest of the year." And I was like in 2019, in November, only $20 for the rest of the year. I'm like, so what? I want 2 months worth of membership.
That's exactly how Universal Studios Hollywood sells season passes. You just get the rest of the year for a discount.
Yeah.
That's a.
So I just figured. I spent enough. I had enough years under that I just I got enough Mensa cards now with, and they were pretty cool though. They said I said, can you put one under Raven and one under Scott Levy, so I have one of each.
Nice.
That's incredible.
The only reason I pay my SAG dues is so I can get screeners at the end of the year.
Right. That's a SAG.
That's an
Yeah, at least you
incentive,
get screeners.
That being said, have you seen
Jojo
Parasite
Rabbit?
yet?
No.
Yeah, that's the movie to see.
Yeah.
It's the best movie in a long time.
I haven't seen any of Bong Joon-ho's movies.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He's actually the owner of New Japan. I don't know if you know.
I was a fan of Old Japan. But the SAG dues, I've been paying $240 a year or whatever the hell it is for since 1995. And I don't think I've ever everything I've mostly done ever since then has been non-SAG, but I still keep paying the dues like a mark every month. Every 6 months.
Can I ask you, what was the last movie that you saw that you were like, holy shit, that's a fucking good movie?
What was it? Now I'm drawing a blank. Told you the short terms.
Yeah, he just told you midterm memories.
That's fine. That's fine. You should watch Parasite because
Parasite.
it's amazing.
Well, what's it about?
To tell you would be.
You don't want to. You don't
Yeah,
want to
okay,
really
don't
know.
tell
It's
me.
better to not know anything. Don't watch.
Yeah, I
the
actually
trailer.
hear. Yeah, they
Hitchcock.
say not to watch the trailer.
Yeah.
So that's
I
kind of
don't. I
interesting.
hate watching trailers because they give away
Everything.
Like the movie Castaway. They gave away that he gets off the island.
Yeah.
I mean, you pretty much know he's gonna, but they give it away. There's a scene where it's raining and he runs up and hugs the girl, and you're like,
So it all it works out.
Yeah, that's fine. Like that scene didn't happen before he went on the island.
Smart man right there.
Wow, you get another Mensa card just for that.
Yeah, so I try not to watch me and my ex-wife is my best friend. We got divorced to save the friendship, so we'll go
Nice.
and we're buying another house together. So just go figure that. And
I love my Jewish people. I love it. I love it.
And but we go to the movies. It's like she loves the trailers, and I'm like, I hate the trailers. I used to love them as a kid, but they didn't give it all the movie away. But
Right.
now, so I'll be like, I got my fingers in my ears and my eyes closed, going la 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 la. She's like, shut up! I can't hear the trailer.
So you said you don't watch much of the current product. So you haven't seen any of AEW? Or...
I watched some of AEW. I'm friends with Cody.
Yeah.
So I watched a bunch of that, and then I missed a couple of weeks over the holidays.
Yeah.
I think one of the only problems, one of my major, I think it's a really good show. I think it's a good variety. I think it's exciting, but I think that there has to be I think with any show, I mean, I don't know if they're the only one, but it's like any TV show. You have to have something where you can't miss an episode.
Right.
You know, and I don't think they found that one thing yet that where you're like, I have to tune in every week.
Sure.
You know, I think that's a big thing. But other than that, I like the product. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of selling. I wish people would sell more, but a lot of those guys do sell. You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to talk shit about it. I mean, I like the product, and I want them to do well. And there needs to be an alternative.
Right.
You know.
Have you seen any of Billy's show, NWA Power?
I haven't. I've gone to the shows to hang out with Billy, you know, before the shows.
Yeah.
And then when his shows start, I usually leave.
I would say no Raven run-ins coming up.
We have a storyline.
It's just
we want
like when you're at his live concert.
Well, we got a storyline we came up with that's really good, but we haven't found the right people to play the parts. So it's really cool though. But you know,
Do they look at like anything like us, perhaps?
Ready to go. You need a new flock?
Yeah, right.
I'll be your kidman.
Can you gig buckets?
If you need a fat security guard, let me know.
So do you consider yourself?
Oh, don't sell yourself short. You're not a security guard.
I was about to say a fat security guard who's terrible at his job.
Do you consider yourself retired from in-ring competition?
Semi-retired.
Semi?
I still do. Yeah, the boys love. Like I'm known for being lazy too,
Right.
and so like my character fits being lazy because he has his flunkies do all his work, and they're just like, oh, you're so lazy. But I would do it anyway most of the way, you know. But I am lazy as shit, and and so now with all my injuries, I don't want to take any bumps, you know, because I don't want to get hurt. I got a occipital neuralgia in my neck, which luckily is gone for now. But it can come if I get hit in the head. It'll flare back up.
What does that mean?
Inflammation of the nerves in the neck, which
Real
is
painful.
Yeah, it's brutal. And I also have like my shoulders. The Atlanta Braves head orthopedic surgeon said I had the two worst shoulders he's ever seen. Wow. And so like this arm, I have a half replacement. I can go to there. This one goes here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
So you can still DDT.
Well, I'd rather not because I don't want to land on my neck. So even though you land on your back, I don't want to jar the area. So what I do, and this is going to sound so lazy, but it works, is I only do tags as a baby face, even though I prefer being a heel, but I only do them as a baby face so I can come in on the shine in the beginning, and so it's all me on offense. Tag in my partner, he gets beat up. He tags me. I make the hot tag. It's all me. And then when it comes time to, and then instead of having a bunch of false finishes, we just go home from the comeback like wrestling matches used to do it. And so it's different because nobody else is doing it.
Right.
And so I don't have to DDT the guy. I have my partner, who's the local guy. I have him do. You do the DDT.
And he gets the rub. Yeah.
He gets the rub.
That's amazing.
And so my boys are like, you're so lazy, but that's the best way to do it.
Right.
But it makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
Sounds really smart. Something that only someone who was a member of Mensa could
Or
come up
a
with.
non-dues-paying member.
Right.
Which is kind of smarter.
Totally. Are you still, because I watched that first episode of Rebuilding Raven with DDP. Are you still working out with him at all?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, but it's so like weird because like this arm will not get it. It's not going to get any better. And we tried really working it and stretching it and manipulating it, and it got worse. You know, the more
wow.
Yeah. So it's just so damaged. But there's like a 2-inch bone spur like right here that it grew to protect itself. Which is weird. Just on a side note, it's weird how the body protects itself. Like it grew a 2-inch calcium deposit right here, so I couldn't move it up like that because of all the damage.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, where I was thinking is, I had to get a stent put in recently. Like I had a heart attack in 2016.
Wow.
And they put a stent in. And so then I started doing DDPY and then got in really good shape for me anyway. Yeah. And but I started getting a heartburn every so often, but it was only for like 3 seconds, and it would go away, or I'd change positions and it would go away. So my cardiologist said, let's get an echo stress test. So I did the echo stress test, and there's something wonky on it. So he had me do an exploratory, and when they were in there, it turns out that the main artery off the Widowmaker was completely clogged 100%.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, but the cool thing is I have 3 Widowmakers. My body grew 2 extra ones to protect itself.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's really. He showed me the ultrasound, the videotape, and I got like 3. So that's why That's why I barely was bothered by the fact that the major artery off the Widowmaker was clogged 100%. Because I grew extra ones. So in the shoulder, I grew the extra bone spur, which is really sucky for my shoulder. But with the heart, I'd much rather have the heart extra growth.
For real.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
Dude, that reminds me of like Roddy Piper, who used to hang around here all the time. We constantly talk about what was like 6 months or something like that. He was like complaining about his neck.
Yeah, he was low on power steering fluid in his car, and we'd hang out, and he had this weird aching injury that he would say he thought it was in his shoulder. He always thought, he's like, oh, my shoulder's been bad the last few months, and I remember him still struggling to turn this wheel. He'd use one hand, but he could only get it so far, and all this. Months and months of him going, everything's good, just this wonky shoulder. And then he went to a doctor, and they're like, "Oh, your neck is broken."
That's awesome.
That's how powerful he is. To him, it was a sore shoulder. It turns out his neck was broken.
His one-man show was pretty good.
Oh, it was great.
Did you ever see it?
He built it here in the middle of the night, right upstairs from where we are right now. He used to come here all the time. He became a paid regular. He's the only wrestler that's on the wall here, other than Andy Kaufman.
Really?
Yep.
There was a guy who opened for him. Who when I went to go see him, me and Roddy and I go way back. He helped me out in Portland, gave me one of my first big breaks, and so I went to go see him and do his one-man show. And there was this guy, I don't remember his name, who did maybe the funniest set I've ever seen in my life.
Steve Simeone?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
His thing about jerking off to
Hogan. Yeah.
Hogan. Yeah. That is the funniest set I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Hey,
Go get
text him.
That's
He's
hilarious.
he's
He's
here right
literally
now,
upstairs.
and
Go get
he's
him.
so stoked that
If you
you're
can
here.
find him, please go.
Yeah,
yes.
please. Yeah, I'd love to.
He was in the main room.
Oh, that's so cool.
He told me to
that-
tell Raven hi.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the funniest set I've ever seen in my life.
You
So
gotta
great.
tell him that when he
And
comes
he's a Philly
down
guy.
here. You hit him with that. We're gonna get to see him cry. He's gonna get so
All right.
he's notoriously like the nicest and like most sensitive comedian.
Is he?
All of us are cold.
I
as
could
ice.
never remember his name. I always forget. I always try and explain to people, like, when they ask me what funny said, and I was like, oh. You know what else I thought was one of the funniest I've ever seen was I saw it on video on Netflix, was Rogan's when he's talking about all the stupid people are alive and the smart people die out.
Yeah.
And then he has the retarded kid trying to explain the Bible to him.
What was that on?
That was his
podcast?
original one. That
Oh,
was
his
his first
special.
one.
Oh,
one.
yeah.
The one that opened with the whole sandwich bit.
Yeah, I don't think I even saw that one.
And he's like, he's doing a retarded kid. And he's like, I may be retarded, but that doesn't even make sense to me. Talking about the Bible.
Speaking of the things that don't make sense, has there ever been a storyline pitched to you that was just memorable and how just like insanely bad it was? Because I know you always like had a super creative mind. Like, didn't you create the Dudley Boyz? gimmick?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Wow, tell us about that.
I was in Tampa at the fairgrounds, and we had an ECW show, and I was talking to Dean Malenko, and I go, and Dean says, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm putting on the foil, coach, every game, like from the Hanson Brothers and Slapshot."
Sure.
And I go, "Oh, we need Hanson Brothers." I go, so that's I came up with the Dudleys because of the Hanson Brothers.
Oh.
That's why they had the glasses with,
Yeah.
with no lenses.
Wow.
Yeah. I was surprised you didn't. That's not where you wouldn't have thought of that. That's where they came from because of the glasses. But
I knew you came up with it. I didn't know what you had based it on.
no, I'm saying I'm surprised you didn't. You guys wouldn't have figured that it came from Slapshot. I figured that most people would have figured that, but maybe not.
Nah, man. It was just always like, oh, they're a bunch of hicks with
Well, I always try to hide.
tie-dye on.
I always try to hide stuff like one of my really proud moment was I was working for Global and I was doing the commentating as well as wrestling, and I was went to this club in Atlanta and I saw Michael Hayes across the room. And I was like, oh, I want to go say hi to him. And I'm like, I don't want to just be a mark. I got to, be cool. And then while I'm debating how to go over there and be cool, his wife comes over and he says, my husband wants to say hi to you.
Oh, wow.
And brought me over. I was like, holy shit, he wants to meet me. But But I told him, I said, so he put me over, so it was great, because he was like my hero. Like him and Jake are like my two biggest, my two favorites of all time.
I could see Jake for sure.
Yeah, and so I go, man, I stole so much from you. He goes, I gotta be honest, I don't see it. I go, no, he felt bad. I was like, no, that's great. That means I hit it.
Right.
Like, that means I made it my own. That I took, like, I took some stuff that he does. Like, I thought I would, I was doing it. I was trying to do it exactly like him, but in my own particular vernacular.
Yeah.
And apparently it worked because he didn't see it at all. But it was like so cool, But I always try to put everything in my own. Put my own twist on it, put my own imprint, my fingerprints.
So do you have a cover version of Freebird Road somewhere that we should know about?
Yeah, even your DDT was different.
Yeah, well, that I thought, okay, you need to do a finishing maneuver. You want to do something you can do to everybody.
Yes.
All right, and when you DDT someone...
There he is.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Look at this guy.
I was just telling him, man, that was the funniest set I've ever seen when you did that in Atlanta when you opened for Piper.
Yeah, the punchline?
Yeah. The
Dude, I thought
funniest
this
set.
was all a practical joke.
No.
Honestly, I thought you guys were going to call me in here like a bucket of soup would come off the door or something.
There was a moment right when you came through the door where I go, I hope this was the right opening.
No, this guy was funny, not that guy.
I don't think I've ever seen you before.
It's the funniest set I've ever seen when you're talking about you and your little brother jerking off. or coming because of when Hogan came out.
Oh, we both got boners. We were
Yeah,
like,
we
it
both
was
got
so
boners,
cool.
that's it,
Hulk Hogan
yeah.
ripped his shirt off. We both got boners.
Yeah.
Your dad is like, yeah, you guys think you have a boner.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way Roddy can follow it, but Roddy's Roddy, so of course he could. But that was the single funniest stand-up I've ever seen in my life. I always wanted to tell you that.
Wow, thank you so much.
He
What
said
an
that we
honor.
told him we have to grab you.
Yeah,
Luckily,
certainly.
you
Yeah.
were here. We were going to come to your apartment and drag you
Right,
out.
right.
Yeah, Raven in the basement. Raven is in the basement.
Oh, so cool. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah, I used to watch you at the ECW, Viking Hall ECW Arena.
Didn't we meet that night, though, before the show?
Yeah, and I was nervous just like I am now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you still do that bit, or?
I haven't done that one in a while, and then I took out the boner part because I felt bad about that.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best part. It's so funny, but it's so real. Like,
Yeah, we were like, I don't know why this is happening.
Yeah.
It's just awesome.
Is that out there now on iTunes or something, that bit? Or-
No, I think
on
I
that
filmed
album.
a version of it.
I mean, it was like a 30-minute bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it you didn't think it was going to get better. It just kept getting better and better, and then it peaked, and he peaked, and he was done, and you're just like, holy shit, what an act.
Dude, thank you.
And that's when I said to myself, I go, man, I'll never be like that. That really also depressed me, is because I do stand up, and I'm like, man, I'll never write a set that good. I'm like, that's kind of bummer. It's kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Dude, that's how Tony and I became friends. Remember when we were down in San Diego together? We were in La
Yep.
Jolla,
Yep.
and you were like, I didn't know you were a wrestling fan.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God. Best friendship immediately.
Yep. Yeah. It was awesome.
And back then, not a lot of comedians were, like, out of being a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
what changed
they
our
were closeting?
dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Like you notice things like
I mean, we were out when we were kids. We were out when we were in high school.
Right.
But then after that, there was like this shut-off period. I think around here, as a stand-up comedian, you don't want to give too many people too many things for them to make fun of you.
right.
And but once you find out somebody's a wrestling
Oh.
fan,
That's
like
yeah,
you,
they
I
become
remember
buddies.
when we found out
Oh,
because
yeah.
we started working the door here together over 12 years ago. And then there's this moment where like you'll see someone chuckle or something, or there'll just be
Like
this
some kind of
reference
weird,
like you smell
deep
the rock
reference.
is cooking,
Yeah.
and you're like, what'd you say?
But then you have to gauge,
what
like-
the rock is cooking.
Yeah. Then you have to gauge how much of a fan are you, and
Right.
it's like different deep references, and that's when those long conversations happen all night about
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're talking about Tonka Michinoku, and you're going like deep and shit. Those
Right.
are man, yeah. Steve
I
Simeone.
used to love working with Taka Michinoku.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like me and Justin Credible somehow would always be on Sunday Night Heat working him and
Funaki?
Funaki,
Yeah.
And man, he was so great because he was so light that
Yeah.
you could do anything to him, and he was like rubber, so you never hurt him, and he could fly. It was so easy to work with.
so you could do the power moves.
Yeah, you could look like a superstar,
Right.
like a badass.
Love that.
I always like working with lighter guys because then I could control them better. Like working with big guys like 280s, 300. It's harder to move them. They're never as agile. They're never as they don't bump as sharply. When you punch them, their heads don't snap back.
Right.
They kind of ugg it.
I always wondered about your title match against Terry Funk at the first ECW pay-per-view. Did you ever feel like you had to be careful with him because he was at an advanced age then?
He was, that's actually funny you say that because Dreamer would always go, he goes, why do you always go so light on Terry?
Yeah.
He goes, that's the only time, he goes, your shit looks weak. And I go, because it's I have too much respect for him. He goes, he's tougher than you are. he's like, lay it in. I'm like, it's hard to lay it in on Terry because just out of, just because he's Terry,
Yeah, sure.
Was he still punching hard at that time? Because Mick Foley has that story where he's like, "Oh, I love Terry's punches," and I took one. I realized, because he's just punching you. Was he? Was he still hitting hard at that point too?
I didn't work with him much. I only worked with him a few times, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I worked on that. Not enough to remember his punches.
Do you remember Piper's punches? Remember working with Piper?
Never worked Piper.
Oh.
No, I never worked Piper. I never worked a lot. Believe it or not, I never worked a lot of people. Like I never worked Hogan, never worked Sting, never worked Arn, never worked Flair, never worked.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't wrestle because I was because I was being protected.
Right.
So I wasn't with those guys, and then I was on in ECW, none of them were there. Then in WCW, I was being protected, so I wasn't fed to any of them. And then in WWE. They weren't using me with The Rock. I think I fed to bump for him, and I took 3 punches.
Yeah.
And bumped for him. So you wanted to press The Rock. So you're snapping your head as far.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
to their credit about protecting you, I will say this: is I remember very specifically around the time that all of this was happening that. When they announced that you were wrestling Goldberg, I really felt which is exactly how they wanted it. I felt like you had a chance of winning because I'm like, oh my god,
this is the guy.
This is the guy.
Yeah.
He's got the flock. They can.
That's
do
what I thought.
Boy, was I ever wrong.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because
it just seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they did
but
protect you. What are other than for moments like that where it's like Goldberg where they think you can where it seems like you could do things, why do you think they protected you so much?
They didn't protect me so much. They just didn't have me work with the top guys for some reason. I guess because I worked Nash, but it's kind of funny. Like the boys would. There's a bunch of stories all tied up in one, but Sullivan would always try and come up with. Me and Sullivan weren't good friends yet, and he would always try and come up with because Eric gave me a little creative freedom, and I was the only one that had some other than Hogan or whatever. Mm-hmm. So so they didn't. He didn't like it. Because he's the booker, and so he would always think of ways to try and get me to do jobs.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Hey, listen, I need you to put over so and so," but I would go. And I back in the old days, you never would have disagreed with the booker, But at this point, I was like, well, if everybody else is negotiating, I go, well, okay, that's a great idea, but I'm doing this with this guy, so if I do that, it doesn't really make any sense. And he's like, son of a bitch.
Right.
And so he'd have to let me go over. And then they'd always try and they'd always tell me it was like a game. He would always try and have me get beat by somebody. And then, but it was never anybody who was a top guy.
Sure.
So I always had a way to get out of it. And Canyon would go to me, he goes, "How do you do that?" I go, well, you have to be that fast on your feet. You have to think, because if they tell you we need you to put over so and so, you can't leave and come back and say, I don't want to do it, because then that's heat, But if you say in a moment, you go, and besides, even if you did, they'd go, oh, we already sent it to the truck, we can't change it, it's just bullshit, but it's just whatever. But so I just would, negotiate right there, and eventually it became when they'd always say, call so-and-so in to get the finish, and then Terry Taylor would go, and he was the co-booker, he was the assistant booker, he'd always go, somebody get Raven so we can negotiate a finish.
Right. But it was kind of important, though, I feel like, at the time, to protect your character, because, you had the stable around you, but I feel like all those guys would lose constantly.
That I fought for that so hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, and Sullivan would go, "Some have to die so that others may live."
Right.
and that's how they kept the gimmick down too. So it's not, they only protected me, I guess, from the top guys, or maybe they just didn't want the headache, or
Yeah.
I don't know. But I never worked, and even when I was Scotty Flamingo, I never worked the top guys. Like Zbyszko was the big. I know Steamboat I wrestled, but I just for some reason I never wrestled like the main, the top guys. Which I was more than happy to not wrestle them because I knew I'd be doing a job anyway. So I was like, you want to protect yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I was a double nerd at the time. I was into comics and wrestling, and I always looked at you as like kind of like the XMen in this rarefied air. Like the X-Men never participated in the big shit. Yeah,
that's a great analogy.
Own world. Yeah,
that's a great analogy.
And I was like, that's Raven, and like Jericho to a certain extent too.
So am I Cyclops or Wolverine?
Well, with you growing extra heart ventricles, I'm gonna go Wolverine.
So it means I don't end up with Jean Grey.
That's right.
Sorry, son of a bitch. And why'd they book Famke Janssen? She was like 60 years older than.
Oh, I thought she was so hot in that.
Yeah, but she was so much older though. than the whole cast. She was the same age as the whole cast put together.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of mistakes were made in the Fox X-Men situation. I feel like.
Big XF. You excited the XFL's coming back?
Oh, sure. that cut our paychecks in half instantly. Like when they lost all. Yeah, I mean, literally, I can look at my paychecks from the year before, and they were like literally half. That the year the XFL bombed.
Whoa. My goodness.
I thought I had respect for him that he's gonna not just piss us. That he's got a ton of money. What's he gonna do with it? You just. So at least he spent it, but then when he took it out of our paychecks, I was like, wait a minute.
Hey, do I got to put on pads and play to get my fucking pay back up?
You have a favorite memory Vince McMahon story that you could share? We're big Vince believers or like admirers. Some of us super fans.
Yeah, I'm not. We don't get along.
Yeah,
we're not cozy like that.
What was the infamous Michael Hayes who the fuck hired Raven story? Is that a real story?
According to Michael Hayes, that's what Vince said. Yeah, he goes, "Who the fuck hired Johnny Polo?"
Right.
Anything you remember, like a face-to-face interaction that sort of encompasses who Vince is, or anything like that? A moment that you remember where you're like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I mean, not really. No, I mean. The most, I remember okay, when I was Johnny Polo, me and Shane McMahon used to hang out, and all the boys thought I was like, just kissing his ass, hanging out with the boss's son, but I was really burying myself because I was hanging out with him and keeping him out till 4 a.m.
Right.
I was doing commentary with Vince, and I used to call him Vic, like I didn't know his name.
Right.
I always think that's a funny bit. And, and he goes, but so I'd call him Vic, and so Shane would come, like, we'd go out and get drunk. 4 a.m. He'd call his dad. He goes, "Hey Vic, I'm staying over at Johnny Polo's."
Oh no.
I was so buried. I mean, so of course he said, "Who the fuck hired Johnny Polo?" when I came back.
Right.
But but that's just, it's just, I don't know. It was one of those things, but just, it was weird seeing him as the father, like in I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
It is what it is. We're never he always respected my creativity and my intelligence, because like his buzzwords are clever and clever. You have to be clever, and I was always clever, and I had notes and stuff, like when I did commentary, like bits I'd want to put in, and stuff, and so he really liked that. That's why he made me an associate producer of Raw, and gave me an office on the fourth on the executive.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was a producer, associate producer of Raw. And I had an office across the hall from Pat and Bruce.
Nice.
Wow.
Like it was Linda, Pat, Finkel, Bruce, the Death Office, which was right across, which is the one I took, because whoever ended up there ended up leaving at some point.
Yeah.
And
that's a hell of a stable. You,
Yeah.
Linda, Bruce, Pat.
yeah. And then JJ was over there, and then Vince was past him. So that's where so I had an office in the, but I used to they gave me this job Actually, I don't know if I can talk. There's a lot of stuff I can't talk about
Sure,
because
sure,
of
sure.
lawsuits,
Of course.
previous lawsuits that are. So let's just move on from
Right.
the.
You sat on the floor in the corner in your office in the store. We get it.
Just him in the corner of the conference room.
Do you ever feel like you should have rode the ECW wave longer rather than, because you talked about that, how you like kind of hit the wave. I mean, the company got bigger kind of after you left, and you came back.
But they got bigger, but
Yeah.
they weren't as influential though.
Yeah.
So no, I feel like I caught the wave perfectly. Like I got there just as they were starting to get that buzz. Like, they always had a buzz from day one. But they really were starting to catch on because they did the first angle that, well, okay, there was this Stain throwing the belt down was like the first big angle. He had the 3-way with Funk and whatever,
and Scorpio.
and no Sabu.
Oh.
And then the big angle that started to get him some eyes was the Sandman Dreamer, Sandman Blinding angle.
Right.
And I came right there, so it's just like the wave starting to get going, and I jumped on it, and then I rode it right to at the end of its influential. I don't know if that's a word, but it's
We'll allow it.
You're
You'll allow
Mensa.
it-
You can
you'll
make
allow
it
it.
up, and we have to listen.
Yeah.
It's fine.
yeah. I'll go check the Mensa records.
Yeah, if Warrior can make up Distrucity, you can say influentiality all you want.
But the influence it was I didn't get out because of that. I told Paul, I go, just offer me a little more money and I'll stay, but he couldn't do it, and so I couldn't stay, and he hated me for that and wouldn't talk to me for like a year or two.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was terrible. And then because it was like the best work I'd ever done was with Paulie,
Yeah.
He wouldn't even call you even on that big cell phone he had? The reception was probably bad on that thing.
I remember one time when I was watching, and sometime I was in the business already, but Paulie had like he had a he had the cell phone on WCW, but it was actually a home phone, like the home.
It was a landline phone.
It was the remote landline that you can carry around the house.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I think he had Jason Hervey with it or something.
Oh my goodness. When's the last time you were in touch with CM Punk? You guys had that great feud in TNA.
Yeah, we I haven't talked to him in years. We've passed messages back and forth, like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy that he tried to do what he wanted to do with MMA, but I just wish he would have went to Bellator first.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a gym first. Maybe.
Or a few lessons.
Yeah, like to me, like I knew he wanted to do it, but like I don't know why he went to UFC first, because he should have went to like Cage Kingdom or some local build some cred up first, or at least find out what your level is.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that was a bad play, especially because he didn't need the money,
Right.
That's like going to a shopping mall and playing that big blown up chessboard and beating a stranger and then applying for Mensa immediately just because of that. You're like, I'm a genius. I'm going straight to the top here. It was sort of shocking. I've never seen, you just don't see anything that exposed before. There were times in that last fight that he had, I was there. I was right next to the octagon for that one. And there was times where he literally could have gotten up, like he didn't know what to do in a fight. Like the guy didn't have him in any control, but he was already like giving up, sort of. He didn't realize that he could pop up and stand up.
I have so much respect for him for doing it, for for walking away and doing what he wanted to do. Like
Sure.
I love people like that. That it's or people like I was saying before, like if you just hoard your money and you don't do anything with it, what's the point? You need to enjoy it, and if he has, if he found something he wanted to do more, then that's great. But I just wish he would have went about it, from a more productive way. Because like if he would have went to a smaller promotion and got beat still, then it wouldn't have been as big a deal. And it
Right.
doesn't, because he has too many fans that they have to have cognitive dissonance. So they just, that never happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
And he'd have more respect from fight fans had he done that. He'd gotten he'd get all the rub from being tough, but without embarrassing himself completely for the
Right.
people that actually know what happened there.
You know who I'm a big fan of? That and he reminds me. It looks like Buster Keaton is Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall.
He's the guy that I think that's his last name. He's the guy that did the Aragiri roll or whatever on the BJ Penn and submitted with an ankle lock in like 12 seconds.
This is
Oh,
your
Uriah? Uriah?
No.
Uriah Faber.
No.
Wait,
I know the guy you're talking
Ryan Hall, and he looks like Buster Keaton.
Ryan Bader?
No, he's an up and coming guy. He's like a jujitsu wizard.
Someone Google this.
Yeah, someone Google
Who
it.
did, he,
God's
who did he
sakes.
beat?
BJ
like,
Penn, a
with that leg
couple
lock,
losses
right?
ago.
Yeah.
Huh.
What's that role called?
Knee bar.
Yeah, his
No,
name, his name is Ryan Hill. I'm sorry, Ryan Hall, and yeah, he's only fought in like 9 matches. He's 8-1.
Who'd he lose to?
Eddie, some guy in Reality Fighting 12.
And it's for like
in
one of his first matches.
2006.
Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
but anyway, so the only reason I bring it up is because we're in L.A. and so I figured people know who Buster Keaton is. I figured
Yeah.
you'd know who he is. But I tell everybody else, like, oh, the guy looks like Buster Keaton.
He's on our
And-
wallpaper in the bathroom here.
And everybody's like, who's Buster Keaton? But I figured L.A. would know who Buster
Oh,
Keaton
yeah.
is.
You're in
Comedy.
the right place for that.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's whatever. Fuck y'all.
Another interview I saw, you were just talking about how content was the word you used now for your life, like
Yeah.
having gone through wrestling and addiction and all sorts of things, and like you're just like in a super good place. Is there anything that you said you're semi-retired, but is there anything in the business that still like you kind of would like to do? Would you ever want to be like a booker? I mean, you just
Yeah,
listen to
I'd
how you
like-
rationalize through things all the time.
I'd like to pass on my knowledge,
Yeah.
but that'll never happen in New York. So that's one. So that there's burnt bridges there. But yeah, I'd love to work with. And I'm talking to some people now, but behind the scenes. But I've been offered like road agent jobs before.
Yeah.
Vince offered me a job as as a writer before.
Oh, wow.
I was groomed to be on the booking committee when I first started. When I was associate producer of Raw, I was also writing the second run TVs, like formatting them.
Okay.
And they were grooming me to be in a booking committee, but I didn't want to. I wanted to wrestle then. I didn't want to be a manager. But that was the only opportunity I had.
I hated you when you managed the Quebecers. I despised you.
Well, I did my job then.
Yeah.
Dude, that
absolutely.
was incredible work. As Johnny
God, I
Polo.
hated
mean, that was right in my wheelhouse,
even
right when I
know-
was
yeah.
watching, and you were
Thank you.
as manager of Quebecers was just so. I mean, if you'd stayed there in that role, I think you would also have been able to go down as one of the top managers of all time.
Or
Just the
gone
way-
down one of the top
Yeah.
managers.
If Bobby Heenan was so lucky.
Like it shocked my system when I realized you were the same person. It was because I
Yeah.
loved Raven, hated Johnny Polo.
Well, that's why Raven had to be so tough because Johnny Polo was an albatross.
right.
So that's why I had to be the toughest guy in the room. But I didn't want to be a tough guy character because everybody's a tough guy. I wanted to be a chicken shit heel, but
Yeah.
I had to be a tough guy, but I wanted to do it in a different way. Instead of killing everybody, I wanted to do it by just taking the beating and just keep coming.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, but there's not much I want to do now. I mean, other than most of the stuff I want to do is stuff like for an example, like I would love to do be a judge on AGT, which never happened, of course. but like that's like a utilization of my skill set.
Sure.
Just to talk shit for 5-10 minutes at a pop. But so stuff like that, which is never going to happen. So I mean, I never even met Simon Cowell. I'm sure he'd love me though.
Right.
No, but but stuff like that I want to do. But I mean, that's not happening. So, but for the most part, I'm content. I'm happy with the career I had. You can always use more money. You can never have too much money. Actually, my new latest interest, I hate to keep saying it, but the Kill Tony show, like I want to go on a Kill Tony show, like not as like a panelist, so I can make fun of the
We
talent.
know a guy.
You got it. You're in.
Cool.
Next time, you just got to give me a warning. If you're ever here on a Monday, we got you there. Where you live in Atlanta or New York?
Atlanta.
When we do one in Atlanta,
All right, cool, man.
You're gonna be there.
There it is.
That's on my bucket list. Cool.
Well, there you go. Mine too.
there's a
Having
bucket.
Raven as a guest on Kill Tony's on my bucket list. As soon as you said AGT, I'm literally like, I got this. I see where we're going with this.
Yeah, but like that's like my skill set, you know.
Yeah. And
You
you're
know.
Mensa, you can handle it.
Yeah.
Got the card.
All you need is the card, baby.
You have to
Yeah,
whip it out
maybe
after every set. You're like, listen, as a Mensa member.
As a member, I say, doing stand up. If you're not laughing at my jokes, it's just because you're too stupid.
Well,
Love
dude,
it.
shit. I mean, I'm tapped out of questions. You guys have anything you want to?
I'm pretty sure I covered everything that I wanted to cover. I got the Michael Andrzejczyk story out. That's a big one for me.
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask
Are
you.
you guys all stand-ups?
Not me.
He
That's why I'm the
he's-
least funny on there.
He books great comedy shows and works with a massive concert promoter and comedy.
Really?
promoter.
Because I need someone to book me more stand-up gigs.
All right.
Yeah,
go.
seriously.
Talk.
All
Again,
right.
I know we know a guy. I
Yeah,
know.
that's perfect.
I am, but none of them consider me a stand-up, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
that's
Right. Yeah.
So you're more of a sit-down comic?
Yeah.
He's
They
like the
love me as a
Raven of
producer.
comedy.
Right.
He sits
They
in the
love me
corner.
as a producer.
The only person that stands up when he's on stage is the audience.
So do you manage wrestling or?
I actually referee.
It's
I'm
Harvey
a
Whippleman.
referee.
He's
Yeah, look at him.
I
Harvey
got in
Wiffle
with,
Ball?
I started with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood with Dave Marquez.
Right.
And I was over there. I
Okay,
did
what's the fun in? I never understood the fun in refereeing.
The fun in refereeing was I had started with them on commentary, and I was working towards being a manager and stuff like that. And I was there one day, and they needed a referee.
Did you enjoy it?
You know, I enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would.
Because I'd be like, what's going on behind me? Like you know, like when they're doing stuff behind the ref's back, I'm like, no, I gotta look, gotta see what's going on.
So, in a lot of ways, it's like being a point guard in basketball, where you're helping to make everyone else do what they're doing better.
That's a good point.
And in the same respect, it allowed me to, it continues to allow me to both admire and be involved in what you guys do in the ring in a way where, like, I could never do that. You know, I've taken classes
Is
and
that
I
the
can't.
same with like UFC refs? Because I always wondered, like, you know, like how that could be a fun job. I mean,
They have them. I've worked with them. I did CXF, the MMA.
as you
company
can tell, I'm
here.
a big UFC mark. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
huge mark for
Me
it.
too.
So I've met and I've worked with
I
Herb
just don't
Dean
know
and those
who
guys.
Ryan Hall was. That's the only
He
fighter
looks
I
like
don't know.
He looks like Buster Keaton.
Yeah, I gotta remember my
Those
Buster
those
Keaton.
referees treat it in a much different way because it's not performance.
Right,
So
right.
they are very much protecting the fighters, maintaining the law and order. It's a very different style.
hard
But
fucking job. That
Yeah.
Oh,
is,
it's hard.
brother.
It looks like hard as shit. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the fun is. Like I always wonder.
yeah,
You know, like I always wondered what the fun is of refereeing.
Have
like,
you been to a live
I could
UFC
tell you
yet?
easy.
no, I've never been to a live one.
Though, then that's let me explain to you what what you're missing with the UFC refs is, I mean, exactly how he was saying. It gives him a chance to be the fan that he is of wrestling that close. I mean, these refs are, you know, absolutely they're in the mix. I mean,
Right.
it's hard to imagine, but live these UFCs, it's the closest thing to, you know, a gladiator arena,
Right.
a real fight. Like, it is very different than pro wrestling. It's weird being a big fan of both, because they are so different.
Yeah, but to me, I don't see the big deal, like the big difference, because wrestling to me, pro wrestling is more like a movie, like you know,
Right.
like that's why I don't like. And but here's the weirdest thing to me is whenever I meet MMA guys, they're always like, I don't know how you could take a chair shot like that. And I'm like, I don't know how you could take getting hit like like they're like I couldn't stand there and just allow someone to hit me with a chair, and I'm like, I'd rather know it's coming than have somebody just hit me and
Yeah.
get cold cock me because I didn't see it coming.
Especially with one of those fucking head kicks. I mean, just
Oh.
it's like getting hit in the head with a wooden bat, a real wooden bat.
Here's the other thing. It's for the most part, I'm friends with everybody I work with. There's a few occasions where it's somebody I don't know as well, or we're not as close. But just like watching these guys on stage, when I'm in the ring and I'm working with these people, and they're like when you were popping the crowd. As a ref, I'm standing there. I'm watching two of my friends absolutely crushing what they're doing.
I've asked so many people that question, and no referees ever. Now I get it. Thank you. That explains it to me.
The crowd is going nuts, and I'm standing right next to you, watching you bust your ass to get them there, and I get to just walk right by you. Like I did it to my friend Scorpio Sky one day. He and Willie Mack were having this incredible match. And I just, as I'm circling, instead of giving him a time cue, I just walk past him. I go, "You fucking got him, man." And he just,
That's
you know, he
cool.
just not. And it's one of those like,
See,
I'm
thank you for
watching my
explaining
friends
that.
crush it.
I've always wondered what the thrill was, and now I can see what it is. But you want to hear my favorite referee story?
Yes.
All right, so I was in this show. I was in England. I was wrestling Alex Shane, and he was the champ, and he was a heel. So he hands the belt to the ref. I take the belt from the ref, and I'm like, and I see this like 3-year-old kid in the audience. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give the belt to the kid. So I put the belt on the kid, and the kid's like, yeah,
Right.
And then I go, ref, come here. And most referees are pretty terrible. Like, you have to yell at them to come. Like, they never have their ears open. You have to yell at them to get them to come over. Like, you know, they should be paying attention to everything. Like, you know, just like we have to pay attention to everything. And so I call him over, and I'm like, tell Alex to go take the belt from the little kid, you know, to get a big, you know, heat. And so he goes, okay, leaves me, walks straight over, whispers in Alex's ear.
Oh my God.
Literally put his hand up and whispered in his ear, "Go take the belt from the kid." And then the kid, Alex, immediately gets out of the ring, walks around and takes the belt from the kid. So he takes it. Long story short is he takes it back, gives it back to the ref. The ref gives it. I take it from the ref. I give it back to the kid. The kid goes, "Yay!" You know. And then we did it like 3 times, and then the 3rd time I jumped him. And then the funnier story was, so then I was telling that one day at a seminar, and like about how if you call stuff in the ring, you can come up with some creative ass shit. Like, you know, I never would have, you know, if I couldn't have set that up in the back, but you know, but it was organic. And so I told that, and Tatanka had heard me give the seminar because there was nothing else to do before the show, so he just listened while I was teaching these guys, and he goes, "Let's do that spot." So we did it. Except I was the heel this time, and he gave the belt, but he gives it to like a 10-year-old, not like a 3-year-old. And so I go to get the belt from the 10-year-old. He takes off running.
Let me tell you, Raven, the one time I got to referee a match where Tim Storm was in the ring and I had to pass the NWA World's Heavyweight title to the timekeeper. They hand me the belt, and I walk over, and as I'm walking to the timekeeper, I had the thought, I was like, I could probably make it to the parking lot with this thing, like, you know, not far, but I could get out of here.
Shoot your own angle.
Yeah, right. But it's just like, it's facilitating that moment, helping along. I'm a performer at heart, and it was a role that needed to be filled and played, and I really enjoy it. It's very physical, but it is. It's being in there with you guys, watching how hard you work, how well you do it, and when that crowd's going nuts, I'm just like, man, they're good, fucking great. I've done it so many. I'm just like, you got him. That's my favorite. I'm passing by. I drop my head. You got him, and then just.
It's funny too when you get in a zone, like you can feel like you're having a 5-minute conversation, like, you know, and no time has passed. Like me and Bubba one time had a match where, long story short, I wanted to put this spot in. He said there wasn't enough time, so then we agreed to do it, and then and during the match, he starts going somewhere during the match. He's like, we're not gonna fit it in. I'm like, yes, it is. No, we're not. Yeah, we had like a 10-minute conversation, and I don't know how we just in between moves we're going, this is gonna fit. No, it's not. Yes, it is. We fit. And then, long story short but the zone is an amazing thing because it was like, I know it felt like a 5-minute conversation, and it couldn't have been more than a second, you know, 2 seconds tops, because, you know, people would have seen us having a conversation. And long story short, it was that we get to the back and they go, you went long, and Bubba's like, I told you. And I was like, no, they're wrong about the time. And I went back and I timed it on my VCR because it's still VCR days. Yeah. And we were right on time, because back then when you're working every day, you just know the time. Like, somebody can say how long you've been in the ring. 4 minutes, 12 seconds, you know, and you know it. I'm sure you do, Tony, with stand-up. Yeah, you know exactly how long you're out there.
Whereas some of my friends who sometimes are opening for me on the road, it's very frustrating because they'll come off stage and they'll go, I didn't see a light. And I'm like, who needs a fucking, to me, that those excuses like that are like.
Oh, that's like indie wrestlers. Whenever there's a big crowd, all of a sudden they're told they have like 8 minutes and they go like 17. Oh, we didn't know.
I don't play that anymore.
I've been there.
I'm an enforcer of a headliner nowadays, because I'll always remember who didn't remember or who didn't see the light in the next city we go to. When the sound guy who's meeting us all for the first time comes into the green room, they'll go, okay, so what are we doing on time? I'll go, I'm doing an hour. I don't need a light. But these guys definitely need a light. And you need to tell them where the light's coming from and exactly what time they need to get it to do their time. I do not fuck around with that at all.
In wrestling, like Grizzly Smith in WCW, this is the greatest thing ever. He was like 6'10", Jake's dad. He was like 6'10" with a beard. And just a big, tall, lanky guy with glasses. I mean, he used to be a huge fat guy, but now he's like a tall, thin guy. And he did this for Watts. He did this for WCW. If somebody went long, he would walk out to ringside. He'd walk out to ringside, a 6'10" guy with a beard, and then turn around and walk back, and the match would end 3 seconds later. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, speaking of time, we got to wrap up soon. But I did want to ask someone who, is such a great mind for booking wrestling, and also as somebody who took part in the ECW movement at the time, people were like, oh, all this hardcore shit's killing the business, blah, blah, blah.
Well, the reason the hardcore was bad in a way was people changed their psychology when they did it. I was the only one who still had babyface shines, heel gets heat, babyface makes a comeback. And nobody else did that. They just went, oh, we got weapons, let's go back and forth. Why would you change why would you change the plot? The storyline's the same. Yeah.
Well, a big change happened over the weekend. Tessa Blanchard became the first ever female world champion of Impact.
And now there's all the big brouhaha about her poop audio tape.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit on this week. But I was just curious to your thoughts.
Did you listen to before he gets to this? Okay. Did you listen to the audio tape?
No, I was doing my podcast the other day and they brought it up. I was like, really? Yeah. I'm like, no, you're shitting me. No, I didn't. No pun intended. No pun intended.
That's why they gave her a belt, so she has to keep her pants on now.
Is she groaning and grunting, or
she's like talking dirty? They played it on Jim Cornette's
I didn't
podcast.
listen to it. Chris listened to it.
They played it on Jim Cornette's podcast.
I jerked off to it, but I didn't listen to it.
Right. No. She's just like talking dirty and being like, "Oh, you like that? You know that
you
kind
like
of thing.
that?" And
yeah, totally.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure you saw weirder shit in the ECW locker room.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of weird shit.
She's headlining Funny in the Stank.
Right. But I was just wondering your opinion on
Hell in a Smell
of a female wrestler becoming the overall world champion. Does that hurt the business? Does that, do you think that moves it forward?
I mean, look, the business, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say because, my friends booked it, so I'll have to wait judgment, and plus I don't watch it, so I can't really say,
Quote the Raven, never mind.
Yeah, quote the Raven, I plead the fifth.
But here's the thing is, I have a problem, like, even if you have like 80 pounds, like, okay, I'll put it this way. When I was a kid, when I watched the Rock and Roll Express beat the Road Warriors, I was like, oh, they can't beat them up. The Road Warriors are too big and tough.
Yeah.
Now, and then I got into business, and I'm like, once I learned what working was, I'm like, they should have worked circles around them, So then I had that perspective. So it's, so it's kind of hard, when you see, like Brian Cage and I were talking, and Brian was telling me that he had to put Tessa over.
Yeah.
And, he's like, 270 gas,
monstrous of a man.
Shredded, I mean, he's a monster. And I'm like, and Tessa works like a strong style, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I really would have to see it, but yeah, I know that's sitting on the fence, but
it's all good.
What's your podcast called?
The Raven Effect Podcast.
I love that. Available everywhere?
Everywhere.
Are there any other wrestlers? Do you ever listen to anybody's podcast?
I listen to Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
I love that.
And I listen to what else? I'd like to listen to How Did This Get Made, but they never play any movies that I've seen, and I just refuse to spend 2 hours watching a really bad movie.
Have you checked out his other podcast, Unspooled, where they go over the AFI 100? You might be into that one.
AFI.
Paul Scheer goes over the AFI top 100 movies.
As much as I like Paul Scheer, I'm more of a Jason Mantzoukas fan.
Yeah.
He's so funny.
The best.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Totally.
And I listen to Tony's now, which I just discovered recently. I listen to Rogan sometimes. I don't listen to all of Rogan's guests, though. Like, I just listened to the 4-hour Fight Companion where they talked about fighting for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, right.
But luckily, I'm into conspiracy theories, so I don't mind listening to Eddie Bravo.
Right.
But I listen to that. What else? There's another one. The Higher Side Chats I listen to a lot.
Nice.
Which is a great conspiracy podcast.
If you ever want just warm feelings, there's a great podcast called Good Times with Steve Simeone that you
Yeah,
should definitely
it's
check
him.
out.
Is it warm and fuzzy? Do you talk about boners?
The Raven Effect. Anything else you want to plug? Or you have coming up? That you
Oh
want
yeah, I'm gonna
listeners
actually
to
be
know
in
about?
Vancouver in 2 weeks. You're gonna be there, I think.
I'm gonna be there
Yeah.
at the end of February. I wonder if we're gonna be there at this.
The end of February or the beginning?
The end.
Oh, okay. I thought you said. I thought you had said January 30th or February.
That's Calgary. I'm gonna be there.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, but I don't think anybody from Vancouver is gonna be listening to this. But you never know.
Yeah.
We got Canadians.
All right, you got Canucks. Yeah, I'm gonna be in Vancouver January 30th, Nanaimo the 31st, and the 1st in Victoria.
What are you doing there?
A Q&A.
Oh, cool.
Amazing.
Heck yeah.
And
Well,
then if it goes well, then they said have me come back and do stand up. So
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
love
let's
it.
definitely talk about that, my man.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get you out on the road. We did our plugs on our regular episode on Wednesday. Dude, appreciate it so much you taking the time to come fucking bullshit with us for
Thank you for hanging out, man.
It's incredible.
Seriously.
We're all huge fans.
thank
and,
you, man. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you for the kind words. This
I
was
really
awesome.
mean it,
Thank you
too.
guys
Of course,
so much for
of course.
making this happen. This
I
was a
really
great memory.
meant. I mean, it was the funniest set I've ever seen in my life. I was rolling. I was in pain. It hurt. I was laughing so hard.
Thank you.
And this guy knows pain.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
He'll hit you with
I really thought this was a goof. I'm like, the guys are going
That's
to give me the
hilarious.
business.
He'll hit you over the head with a stop sign when we go out into the lobby.
And then we'll tear the poster board off.
We appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you, everybody who's watching. You guys are going to listen to it later. Thank you for doing that. And god damn, never forget, Store Horseman or your hookup. Holla if you hear us.